So, how do you get these massive, complex projects to deliver value smoothly, continuously? It is one of the biggest challenges for pretty much any large organization out there. I mean, when you've got hundreds of people all working together, how do you stop the whole thing from just grinding to a halt? Well, today, we're going to break down the framework designed to solve exactly that. It's called Art Flow.
And this quote from Eli Goldratt just hits the nail on the head. In a really complex system, it just doesn't matter how brilliant one person is or even one team, right? If their work isn't synchronized with everybody else, the whole system suffers. Individual effort, it's just not enough. It is all about the collective performance.
So, what are we even aiming for? But how do you get there? I promise you, it's not magic. The Scaled Agile framework gives us this toolkit, a set of 8 specific principles they call the flow accelerators. These are basically the 8 levers that we can pull to get that smooth, continuous delivery. We're going to meet them one by one, and then we'll zoom in on a few of the most critical ones.
Okay, first up, it all starts with visibility. If you try to do way too much at once, you're just going to overload the system. So the first accelerator forces us to make all the work visible, and this is the crucial part, put a cap on it.
Next, we have to play detective. Every single system has a bottleneck, that one single point that constrains everything else. If you want to improve flow, you have got to find it and you have got to fix it.
And then you've got the handoffs. Every single time work passes from one team to another, you're risking delays and miscommunication. So the goal here is to build cross-functional teams that can see a job through from the very beginning to the very end. You have to ask, are we even building the right thing? And the only way to know for sure is to get feedback and to get it fast. This accelerator is all about shrinking that time between having an idea and learning if it actually works for a customer.
Now this one, it can feel a little counterintuitive at first, but it is incredibly powerful. Work in smaller batches. See, big chunks of work are slow and they're risky, but small pieces, they move through the system super quickly, giving you speed and flexibility. Think about it. A really long backlog is just an inventory of value you haven't delivered yet. Long queues mean your great ideas are just sitting there, waiting. Keeping those queues short is absolutely essential for being responsive. This one's about protecting our most valuable resource, the focused minds of our teams. Creative, complex problem solving, that stuff requires deep concentration. We have to actively fight all those interruptions that just kill productivity. And finally, we have to tackle the invisible enemy, those outdated organizational habits. Sometimes the biggest thing slowing you down isn't the work itself, but some old policy or a rigid approval process that just doesn't make sense anymore. Okay, so we've met the accelerators. Now let's see a few of them in action, starting with that very first one, limiting work in process. On the left here, this is the chaos we all recognize, right? People are overloaded, priorities are a total mess, and it feels like nothing ever gets finished. But on the right, that's the solution. By making the work visible and actually limiting how much is active, you create focus. And the amazing result, you actually deliver more and you deliver it faster. And what about those bottlenecks? Well, the approach here is really methodical. First, you got to identify it. Where is work piling up? Second, you need to understand its true impact across the entire value stream. Third, you work to increase its capacity, maybe with more people, better tools, or some training. And if all else fails, you find a creative way to bypass the bottleneck altogether. This brings us to one of the toughest challenges out there, legacy thinking. This is where those old habits die hard. You need to be on the lookout for things like traditional project management just layered on top of agile teams, or these rigid waterfall stage gates that just halt all progress. These are the classic signs that old ways of working are sabotaging your flow. Okay, so you're applying the accelerators, but how do you actually know if it's working? You have to measure it. And the framework gives us 4 key metrics that really tell the true story of your flow. Now, before we even get to the metrics, just look at this number, 5%. In a real-world value stream mapping exercise, it was discovered that a feature was only being actively worked on for 5% of the total time it was in the system. Just 5. And this chart just illustrates that point brilliantly. That metric is called flow efficiency. For this team, 95% of the time, the vast majority of the time, the work was just sitting in a queue, waiting. Waiting for a handoff, waiting for a decision, waiting for a test environment. The work wasn't flowing, it was just waiting. So, the first metric you've got to track is flow time. This is the total time from the second an idea is committed to the moment it's live for customers. Yeah, the average here is about 36 days, but the real insight, that comes from the outliers. Why did some of these features take so much longer? That's where you're going to find your biggest opportunities to improve. Next up is flow load. Think of this metric as a critical health monitor for your system. It's simply the total amount of work in progress at any given time. If you see this load consistently rising, that is a massive warning sign that your teams are overloaded and flow is about to break down. The third metric is flow predictability. And this one is all about trust. It measures whether you consistently deliver on your commitments. You're just comparing what you plan to do against what you actually achieved. The target is to be in that 80 to 100% range. This shows the business and yourselves that you are a reliable, predictable delivery engine. Okay, so we've covered the principles and we've covered the metrics. So what's the big takeaway here? Where do you even start? Well, the most powerful thing you can do is focus on finding that bottleneck. Because ultimately, the goal behind all of this stuff is just beautifully simple. Make value flow without interruptions. That's it. Every single accelerator, every metric, it's just a tool to help you achieve that single, powerful objective. And that brings us to the final question for you to take away from this explainer. If you go back to your own teams, your own projects, where is that 95%? Where is the work sitting and waiting? Find that, and you have found your starting point for unlocking continuous flow.